forward to this. Good to see you, Allison. Good to see you, Lynn.
How are you, Lynn?
I'm good. We're all a little sick in the house. So, I mean, not COVID, but it's just a perpetual kind of ambient cold. But it's all right. How are you guys?
All right. Just getting ready to do this thing.
Yeah, it's exciting.
I just flew into New York last night, and so I'm like readjusting to being back here after being away in another country for 5 months.
Yeah. How does it feel? And how was flying?
Flying was all right. And I mean, I'm happy to be back here, see my husband, see my family. So it feels really good. I'm also like it's a little disorienting. And I'm only going to be here for 2 weeks, then I go back. So it's like a little break.
Yeah. How is it though, being there?
Oh God.
Good.
It's been so many things at once, to be honest. Yeah, it's just been, I think, overwhelming, underwhelming, just like I mean, I appreciate I get a lot of like unstructured space to kind of use what I need with that creatively, but even that is like so new, which is awesome.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah. The sort of unstructured time of that Fulbright. I mean, it's just like, here you go. It's a gift, but it's also like, what do I do with it?
Yeah, exactly. It's awesome. And I'm also like, and adjusting to the language and the culture and everything. A lot of things.
Cool. Very good. Sounds good overall though.
Yeah, no, 100% worth it.
Good.
For sure.
Cool. Hi, Shane.
Hi, Shane.
Hello. Hi. How you doing?
Doing all right.
Good. Good.
How are
I'm
you?
glad. Fine, I guess. Sure. Why not? I'm fine. I'm fine.
Fine.
Yeah.
And you're good, Allison. And I never got to meet the Center for Book Arts person in the office.
Hello, Lynn.
Oh, Camilo.
Hi.
Yeah.
Camilo. That's okay. I didn't know if
I'm actually gonna
Camilo. Good.
rename myself.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Nice to meet you. Lynn.
Nice to meet you.
Meet everyone.
Thank you so
And
much.
Camilo.
Camilo. With the double L?
Pardon?
With the double L?
No, just 1 hour.
It's just one. Okay, Camilo.
How long are you in New York, Shyanne?
To June 6th.
That's so soon. I will see you soon. We'll have to. I was not able to muster the strength to traverse the trains up
Yeah.
CBA wise today, but you're in Brooklyn, so that's easier.
I'm in Queens, but my family's in Brooklyn, so I'll definitely
You're in Queens.
go over there. No, but
I
I'll
can
definitely
make
be
it to
over there.
So, sorry, it's 6 o'clock already, so we're gonna start letting everyone in. And maybe we can start just by giving a few minutes and asking people where they're tuning in from.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we should probably wait until like 6:05 to really like kick off. But
Okay. So let's admit. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We're going to wait a few minutes to give everyone a chance to join in. In the meantime, if you'd like to jot in the chat where you're tuning in from, that'd be great. Hello, David. How are you? Welcome. David is in Brooklyn. We're in Manhattan. I know someone here is in Mexico. A train, wow. Liz is summoning from Mexico. Hi, Liz. Wow, from Panama.
Also, for that, if you are able to turn into blank room is not always the easiest. So I really appreciate those of you with faces. That's fantastic. Thank Camilo, just add to the chat that we'll start in a couple minutes. So I get all antsy in dead space. I think, Camilo, if you want to get ahead and
Great.
start.
Here. Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to CBA's Spring 2022 Broadside Series readings called Betwixt. This is the first of a two-session series curated by Allison Carter-Beaulé, poet and part of CBA community. Before we get started, we acknowledge that Center for Book Arts is on unceded territory of the Lenape people. We also have a few notes on accessibility before we get started. Just 1 second, thank you. Sorry. Yeah. Live captions are available tonight. If you click on CC Closed Captions button at the bottom of your screen and select Show Subtitles. The event today is being recorded and will be available to view online afterwards. If you do not want your face or name to appear publicly, please keep your video off, and you can also rename yourself. Please also keep your mics muted. This reading is part of a series that has been going on for over 20 years, and it gives the opportunity to visual artists and poets to work together. We would like to thank our funders. This program is supported in part by public funds from the New York State Council on the Arts and the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council. We would also like to thank poets and writers. Now, I'd like to introduce tonight's amazing curator, Allison Carter-Beaulé. She uses she, they pronouns. She's a printmaker, poet, teacher, and also administrative assistant at Center for Book Arts. Allison is from Calgary and holds a Bachelor in Science in Biology with a double major in English Literature from University of British Columbia. She is currently pursuing an MFA in Poetry at Columbia University, where she was awarded the inaugural Max Ridvo Poetry Fellowship. You can find Allison in New York, either at the foot of a letterpress or waiting for the L train to take her to a letterpress. Welcome, Allison, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Camilo. I'm actually going to do a funny thing here. I just got a text message from my dad who said he can't find the link. So I'm just going to send that to him. I hope you can all empathize. All right. With that out of the way, thank you so much, Camilo. When I was asked to curate the series some time ago, and my staff, my colleagues at CBA can definitely attest to this. I was pretty slow putting things together, but it seems to have finally come together tonight, and I'm really grateful. So I have a bit of a statement that hopefully describes why this is called Betwixt, or at least gives some sort of a prime as to what is so exciting about Center for Book Arts' Broadside Reading Series. So between exhibitions, the gallery is neutralized, stripped, spackled, and repainted for the next show's ordinance and for the one after that. The vessel returns, if approximately, to tear. I've watched my colleagues perform this ritual several times, aiming small tools at the vinyl punctuation marks in wall text, packing artwork for transit, and unscrewing the shelves. When I was asked to curate this series, I rapidly discovered that I only have a peripheral knowledge of what it means to really curate something. Most of what I have learned is through witnessing these labors of uncuration, the process of translating every pedestal back to 0, on the proverbial Cartesian plane. Translation is a tricky word. One valence thereof means to move a shape without distorting its form, no fingerprints and no trace. A translator's labor is often regarded not unlike those of the gallery workers whose tasks are defined in part by the assumption that their work should be invisible, should lie betwixt, caught between the undefined door jamb between two well-furnished rooms. It seems to be a matter of sterility, concern for cross-contamination between one show and the next, as though the art space were an agar plate to be inoculated with those very specific, delicate strains one hopes to bloom just so. Perhaps it goes without saying that poetry and art are unsterile to begin with. Curation too, and certainly any matter of collaboration therein. The Broadside series at Center for Book Arts is a willful, exuberant foray into the unexpected outcome of two artists coming together. We're not looking for the Higgs boson and their collision, the buckshot remainder of two vectors at speed. Rather, I think we are looking for what can happen in the expansive, indefinable between, for the symptomatic flicker of two stars in orbit. This series is therefore called Betwixt. My hope is that together we can delight in between, reside in the cleft. These broadside readings are magical because what remains on the tympan becomes a ghost print in the ear, becomes an echo of a chant, patois, silence, and cacophony. I really thank all of the poets and artists whose work has inspired me within and without this series, and very, very grateful to have all of you here tonight. Thank you so much to the staff at Center for Book Arts who entrusted me for some reason with this series, and I really hope you enjoy it, and thank you for being here. Take it away. So I'm going to introduce our first reader tonight, who is Lin Zhu, and is very dear to me, as all of these poets are. Lin Zhu was born in Shanghai, China. She is the author of Debts and Lessons with Omnidon and Those Ashen Heaps, That Cantilevered Phase of Moonlight with Wave Books. She's the co-translator of P Poems by Lao Lang with Circumference Books, and she's performed multidisciplinary works at 300 South Kelly Street, the Guggenheim Museum, the Renaissance Society, and Rising Tide Projects. She teaches at Columbia University and co-edits Canarium Books. And thank you so much for being here, Lynn.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this incredible series. And thank you to all the printmaking artists, book artists, and Center for Book Arts. And I'm very excited to be reading with Shyanne and Shane. So I'll read 2 sections from the Wave book, which and those ashen heaps, that cantilevered vase of moonlight. And the part that will be the broadside will be in the first section. Basically, as I turn the page, it'll be the second page that I read. And as the procession before me fled, one seemed to know as one whose years the mask and smokeless altars interpose, incessantly numerous as the dead from whose forms shadows pass. And of that great crowd rearranged, the thrush and thrift and edelweiss, a shape whose garments in the changing seasons as yet formless against the trembling like the lifting of a veil. As in autumn time, the leaves borne onward by what through eternity re-echoes, echoes still in untilled fields, the soft and ceaseless song, unchilding, unfathering, unanimous, a shape all light, thoroughly half spoken, a singing, so to speak, that passed through wood and worm before the breathless bee. And having labored timeward through remaining time, what over the bent world life must borrow, that farthest nothing, that incandescent plural of the unopened handful. There the sun lingered, and soft as wind it passes, pure moon of the doorway, pure zero in the diadems of the coffer's edge, the empty cart clattering 1 to 10, 10 to 1. All things unclose their portions in the hour of distribution, of the balancing of accounts, and those who fight for a few scraps of food to renew each day unguarded by the angels. At last, all life passes through the smiling air. Windows open noiselessly as one that in a silver vision floats, already Decembering with the aggregate of time's eternity. And life, in that black or luminous square, life lives, repeating thriftless shadow beneath the few branches galloping through night. Clear stream, wooden horse, blue sword, awaiting the few small acts of cowardice still to come. From my pure throat and the tongue close behind, I have come to trip over the woman who has given birth. Gelatinous, contrapuntal, bamboozled, at last, and screaming again screams of the newborn, since she was there also and keeps me from my childhood. Born, born, born. Orphan with the middle eye, with brains of the butterfly. Between us, plus minus scuffed tips shimmering in the circular lamp, that pell-mell night-enduring mouth, scram, get lost, pick yourself off, you who grovel in the street, you who were born on the road to a quivering zero, prophet, poor, conspiring. I apply exact numbers, the advancing sovereign spatula, and I ripen with my virginity where the void hustles to the bottom. And quivering just a little, lick my fingers, stroke the tip and urinate in the middle and look at the stars, and quivering just a little and lick my fingers and stroke the tip and urinate in the middle of the basin and the two dippers dipping one into the other. Remember, angels weave you. A bearded 3/4 scale redoubled on the forehead appearing by the slow piano of her hand. 2 times 9 is 18. 3 times 9 is 27. 4 times 9 is 36. 5 times 9 is 45. 6 times 9 is 54. 7 times 9 is 63. 8 times 9 is 72. 9 times 9 is 81. 1 plus 8 is 9. 2 plus 7 is 9. 3 plus 6 is 9. 4 plus 5 is 9. The hour, arranging 4 bright columns beyond the corridor of the empty child. Someone, the 5th column, remainder of the triangle, advances like a bell in the afternoon. Thank you guys so much. And I also really want to thank Rodrigo, who I think we'll hear. Thank you so much for making my broadside and my poem into such a, well, anyway, our conversation was great. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I'm just going to share. So, well, I suppose we can move past this first one. Yeah, so Lynn Zhu was paired with Rodrigo Moreira, who is one of our artists in residence. And I will introduce him. So Rodrigo Moreira is a Brazilian multidisciplinary artist creating poetic interventions on social issues that emerge in everyday life. He works on printmaking, video, text, and installation. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Communication Studies and a Bachelor of Arts in Graphic Design with complementary studies in Fine Arts. Moreira was a 2019 Fellow of the AIM program of the Bronx Museum, 2018 Fellow of the NIFEM Immigrant Artist Mentoring Program, Social Practice. During 2016 to 2017, he was a Fellow of the Queer Arts Mentorship Project, and his work has been featured in selective exhibitions in Brazil, Cuba, Croatia, Spain, and the USA, such as Found, Queer Anthology, Queer Archaeology, Queer Abstraction at the Leslie Lohman Museum in New York. And Rodrigo has given me some things to say about the design that came between him and Lynn. And this is the broadside that is being produced forthwith. And he says, the broadside layout was inspired by uncanny coincidences while talking to Lynn about her work and influences. As our works are deeply centered around communication, I thought that a punctuation mark could represent the materiality of books, words, rhythm, and time. The large comma is a pause that makes communication possible, connecting sentences, places, and people. And this is such a decidedly Betwixt image. I think it's absolutely stunning. It was wonderful to talk with Rodrigo about this design and see it sort of come together in the way that he was thinking about it and thinking about his conversations with Lynn about Clarice Lispector, among other things. And this print will be letterpress printed, and like all of the broadsides that we are launching this evening will be available on our website to get a copy of. So thank you so much, Rodrigo Moreira. We're going to move to our next pair of poets and artists, which is Shyanne Figueroa Bennett and Gwen Smith. Shyanne Figueroa Bennett is very dear to me, and I'm so very happy that she is here with us tonight. Shyanne is a Brooklyn poet with roots in Panama, Jamaica, and Puerto Rico. Her work has been published in various journals and magazines, including Green Mountains Review, Oversound, the Acentos Review, and Tribes. She graduated with an MFA in writing from Columbia University, where she was the recipient of a Chair's Fellowship and a Creative Writing Teaching Fellowship. Most recently, she was awarded a Fulbright Fellowship to Panama to support her creative work. Thank you so much for being here today. I'll pass it off to you, Shyanne.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Camilo, for your work involved in this, everyone else at CVA. And thank you, Gwen. It's been awesome collaborating. So to begin, as Allison mentioned, I've been living and working in Panama City, Panama, on a Fulbright, working on writing about the Panamanian history and culture. My great-grandparents came from Jamaica to Panama to work on the canal in the early 1900s. Black West Indians who migrated to Panama to work on the canal were restricted to the lowest paying silver roll jobs while doing the most dangerous work. So some of my poems involve that history. I'll start off by reading the poem that is in the broadside, and then I'll read a couple of other poems as well. The Return. It is done at silvered edge, the color of a scent, in harmonious stamper from our quaking feet, forging ceremonious havens and hollowed eyes waiting from our old beings in trembling shadows, a kind of light, each faceted glimpse of the end. Bellowing throngs blush an aria, yet one rattling bolt is summoned. A chorus begins, marking our bloodless howls, while ripe sheddings re-inhabit dust as our silken bodies emerge in a gemstoned reality, a strange hope beginning. It is done, bellowing throngs, at silvered edge, blush an aria, the color of a scent, yet one rattling bolt and harmonious stamper is summoned from our quaking feet. A chorus begins, forging ceremonious havens, marking our bloodless howls and hollowed eyes waiting, while ripe sheddings from our old beings re-inhabit dust in trembling shadows as our silken bodies emerge, a kind of light in a gemstoned reality, each faceted glimpse, a strange hope of the end beginning. Elegy in Silver. To the countless Black laborers who died in the construction of the Panama Canal. These your wretched bodies thorned, like crowns, you are in the making of what we don't say. How your sweat has been poured copiously on this earth, so hidden in water. Gold teeth, flesh caught in incisors, blood dripping while men marvel at the magnitude of luminous gates where glistening corpses hang threaded in silver. We don't say as much as you say in the blistering walls, as locks clench like fists, your hands still raise water. Lake Gatun. Lake Gatun is a large artificial lake that supplies the water that runs the Panama Canal. Glimmering membrane of water, split when she enters, sinks to clay floor, sand, shell, sedimenting to form a woman, dark as lake floor, dark as they created, in debris of dynamite heads, silver men glisten unsewn and woven into her being broken, hollowed to carry remnants of souls strewn in man-made waters. What can be made from nothing? The question hooks to her neck. Her curl here gills for breath. Iridescent scales shed from slender, sinewy form as her intricate jawbones mechanized for an open, unprecedented speech for she who was carved out of isthmus, intended for silence. In a night, great-grandmother Florence turns my tongue a burnt parchment. Our bent broken, sable hills, the need in. There was, is so many worn in sallow wounds, toil kindled mouths. We become landscape, a vessel surrendered, a metamorphosizing crescent, fresh wombs we know old. This whole forgotten, this our sand shorn woven. The second night, Florence turns my tongue a flaming bush. Anguish, anger, aroma, drenched cloth for saintly tautologies, candle-peaked reveries toward pyroclastic possibilities, ink-bitten invocations of our holy interventions. The third night, Florence turns my ear a glowing coal of fragrant groans or fragment moans. Hear me, red calling, sorrow flapping, you rattling courts me in hook-snatched think blues. This final poem is based on an experience that reminded me of why writing these histories is important. Commentary from Michael. A white American expat on the day he visited the Black West Indian Museum of Panama. I'm disappointed in the racial undertones of the museum. I am a businessman and you're not. A businessman has to do what he has to do to cut costs. Sure, there was segregation here, but that's everywhere. It was in the US too. When immigrants come to a place, they start at the bottom. Look at the Irish in New York. They had 2 strikes against them, Catholic and poor, but eventually they moved up. You know, I love how Panama is so American. It's the edge of our reach. It's like Panama is the US's fingertips. I live in Chiriquí now. It's incredible living in such pristine nature. It was utterly uninhabited. Sure, except for the Indians, until 80 years ago when the Italians came. It's like the Spanish when they encountered the Incas. You know, a lot of Americans were angry at that guy, Jimmy Carter, for giving away the Panama Canal. It was our tax dollars that paid for it. Panama was ours, and there was no Panamanian side to the story. This was never a country. First, it belonged to Spain, then Gran Colombia, and then it was ours. Anyhow, what are you doing here? Oh, you're a poet? So do you rap? Like Big Small in Brooklyn, haha. Well, it's been so good to talk to another American. Just one last thing. Do me a favor when you write your book. Remember, it's just economics. It has nothing to do with race. Thank you.
I'm just a little awestruck there. Couldn't, woo. Oh, Shyanne, I've missed hearing you read. So thank you so much for being part of this. Shyanne and Gwen Smith, one of our artists in residence, worked together to produce a broadside. And Camilo, if you would spotlight Gwen. Gwen is gracing us with the wonderful experience of going through her process of producing this broadside with Shyanne. Those of us who've been in the studio have had the privilege of seeing it come together and listening to how Gwen is thinking about it. And I just, this is such an exemplary example of what this series can do. So Gwen, take it away.
First of all, I just want to thank Shyanne for inspiring me. And also I want to just recognize the art of coincidence, which is one of my mediums. But when Allison gave the options of the poets, I just, it just seemed like Cheyenne's process and my process were quite similar. So I want to say that I want to dedicate the broadside, obviously, to Shyanne and her poetry, but also in loving memory of the African Caribbean lives lost and forgotten in the construction of the Panama Canal and the generational trauma created by that erasure, which subsequently enabled a more efficient route for worldwide trade and capitalism to flourish. So also when I spoke with Shyanne, I just was so touched by her awareness of this kind of yin yang, we can put it that way, of, you know, just the good and the bad of what happens with the Industrial Revolution and when capitalism decides to use Black bodies as you know, a way to forward its own good without realizing the detriment to those bodies. So what I did was I did some research into the African Caribbean workers who made the Panama Canal on the internet, which is a process that I do to create my own work as well. So you can change the slide. As well as I really wanted to sort of understand what the Panama Canal was and how it formed in the land. And so I did more internet research, and I started to see, you know, a kind of a face or, you know, two people kind of kissing or animal shapes from the form. But what I did to, the other way that I learn about things is I try to paint them and embody them. Once I spoke with Shyanne, I actually had her read the poem to me, and it's written in 2 columns. And I just thought it was so fascinating how the poem is read across the columns, and then each column gets their own space, and the meaning of the poem exemplifies. It's just so beautiful that how one column has its own, each column has its own strength, and together they blend together in a way that says it all as well. So I really, that was just so inspiring for me to work with. So I started to try to collage these elements together, and firstly by painting the canal, you know, Panama, the drawing the map, and then seeing what came out, the characters that came out for me, as you can see in the lower left corner. And just the centerpiece happens to be a Bessemer iron production, which is something that that I'm dealing with in my own work, which is how the Industrial Revolution affected my own family and my own personal history. So I just want to include that centerpiece. And then on the right side, you see the first steps. I had originally intended for the African Caribbean workers to kind of align the sides of the river or of the canal, because what the canal does is it, through a system of locks, it kind of lifts up the boat puts it into the lake. I think it's the Gallatin Lake, right, Cheyenne? And then the boat. Thank you. The boat goes through down, through the river and then to the Pacific Ocean, and it's lifted back down into the water. So I was working with the hands and the boat to show this transfer. But as I started, you can go to the next slide. Another piece that I'm working with is my own family history in terms of how it's presented in family trees. And I saw this similarity through the locking system and through this kind of shape, which I have from a book about family trees that I'm working with in my own process. And the book is called Family Record, and I've decided to make my whole project at the Center for Book Arts called The Irish Goodbye, based upon how family trees are worked out. And I also ended up printing it on a riso because I hand painted it. But at first I toyed with doing the traditional letterpress. So I just wanted to show you and Shyanne that I did lay out with letterpress at first, but then as the process moved along, I switched to riso and chose digital print. So here's the final broadside. And I'm just so happy with it. And and again, there are of coincidence that I could blend my project with ideas from my project with themes from Cheyenne's poem. And it's really been wonderful. And as well, learning new printing techniques. This is stencil printed, but it's also a process called riso printing. And I'm in the process of learning it, and it's just really fascinating, as is the whole printing process of letterpress and inkjet and all the forms of processing, and how coincidentally through time it works with research. And I'm just, I'm not being very coherent, but I really just love the coincidence. And I'm so pleased to have had this opportunity to work with a poet and bring this image to life.
Well,
So
thank you so much, Gwen. The other confluence here, another thing that happened was my wonderful, stalwart, dependable, beautiful colleague, Camilo, and his wife just recently moved to New York just recently their visa moved, and brought with them all of the capabilities that allowed this broadside to come together. And so Camilo, I know, has been working very closely with Gwen to make this a reality. I wanted to ask Shyanne if you'd actually seen the print. I know this came together moments before we started this Zoom. So have you seen the image yet?
I saw it before, and I just feel so honored, and it's just been such a beautiful process being able to collaborate. And we had such an awesome conversation, and we're just making so many connections, and it's just I love seeing the way this came together. I also enjoyed seeing the other images of the other things you were working on too, and like many directions it could have ended up going, which were all so fascinating, kind of inspires me as well. And to see the way this one ended up, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shyanne. Thank you, Allison, as well, and Center for Arts. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Gwen. We have one final poet and artist combination, and that is Shane McCrae. So Shane, I will introduce. He's the author of 8 books of poetry, including most recently Cain Named the Animal, which is Farrar, Straus and Giroux. And his book, In the Language of My Captor, published by Wesleyan University Press, was the finalist for the National Book Award, as well as the Los Angeles Times Book Prize. He is the recipient of a Whiting Writers Award, a NISCA/NIFA Fellowship, and a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship. He teaches at Columbia University and lives in New York City. Take it away, Shane.
Thank you, Allison. And thank you for putting this together. And thank you, Shyanne and Lynn, for your really awesome readings. And thank you, Vanessa, especially for the broadside, which I love. So I won't take up too much of your time. I thought a fun thing to do, the poem that's on the broadside comes from a chapbook that's going to come out in the fall of next year. And so I thought it would be fun to just read poems from that. So that's what I'm going to do. I don't know what I mean by fun. This is, okay. This poem is called In the Teeth of the Hound, and it is dedicated to Gary Burnley, who did the art on the cover of Cain Named the Animal. Though cautions stretch forever now before us, Gary, let's meet still, anytime, let's meet. Come to New York and tell me you have come. Though I before was shy and I stayed home in the first midst of the world, ending, beaten by my shyness when you came. The more the world ends, the more the end consumes the past. Though you are a generation older, we're the first that won't survive the end of the world. Atoned by that. We saw the serpent coiled on the Lego bad guy's staff around the earth, and helped our smiling children build his castle. It wasn't Castro or the Russians ever, though it was always them, the end that found us. Now Castro's dead, the Russians in the teeth of the hound they loosed. And what is left but to hope they'll lose, and losing save us? Come, remind me, what was it like to see the end and live? So this is the poem that Vanessa worked with. It is called Impromptu, the Spring Books. And it was called Impromptu because I wrote it all at once and then I revised it over and over again, never quite feeling happy with it, but I still kept calling it Impromptu, I guess because I'm a liar. All right, so not joyful then, but glad then, you will read the wind-wide turning leaves of the spring books next April, when the insects in the earth pollute the earth with life. The winter dead reborn, though dead forever now. Look, death walks your shoveled walk, who promises no birth ever again. Death, who you still suppose is black. Look, out the window, death is white, and every year he comes to tell you so. Bag and a hat, new suit and polished shoes. Though as he walks, death doesn't lift his feet, that you won't see the soles, that you won't know the soles are gone, even the flesh is gone. The bottom of each foot, white bone ground flat from shuffling through doorways. He is now shuffling through your doorway, and the bone flakes as he shuffles in. Look, death's white path, as if you had been playing in the snow. So this poem is after a painting called Untitled Paramin by Peter Doig, and it's called The Devil Has a Poem on His Mind. The devil slips into the painting from Blue Devil from behind a tree. The devil invisible until he fills your eye, all hungering satisfaction and more hungering. The devil has a poem on his mind. He's searching for it, smiling, shirtless, wearing knee-length shorts, tan shorts or off-white shorts. The tree he steps from, you had thought he stood behind, erases that part of his arm, you who see only what's in front of the tree, that part behind the tree, that part lives only in your mind. The devil wants the poem more than his arm, and if he sees the poem in your heart, he will eat your heart. So this is after a triptych called Birmingham by Toyin Oji Odutola. It's called A Man in the South. The man in the triptych isn't in the triptych. One man he's three of might be the same man from different angles, but he's turned in each of the images to look at something different. Or he is looking at the same thing in each, and the eye drawing him has changed its place to see him different, more of him. And the man doesn't want the eye to make him one thing more than another. Has a white tank top on, and the collar and the armholes, each is rimmed with gold as pale as Easter yellow. Red necklace like a shoestring. His black face is smudged with smudged white stars. He's looking up. His eyes escape to where no eye can follow. So I said, I'm just going to read, am I going to read 3 more? Oh my gosh. No, I think I'm going to read 2 more. Yeah, 2 more, just 2 more. I guess that's what poets say at the end. And I started to say it. You could see the process. I started to say I was going to read 2 more, but then I thought there was 3 more. And I thought, oh my gosh, faux pas. But it turns out I was wrong. It's only 2 more. Right, you know, I'm doing it the right way. So I said that these were all from a chapbook. They are, and it's called A Funeral Ship. And this is the title poem, A Funeral Ship. A cardinal in the bleachers, read in a white word, song in a word like smelling salts. Although he flies and doesn't sing, although I've never heard a cardinal sing, although I don't know whether cardinals sing, for what if cardinals sing, they sing. He flies from the black bleachers past our faces, not 3 feet from us, as if for us, my daughter's face, my face. So close the cardinal seems not real. He flies the wake of our idea of him. It goes before him like a funeral ship, flies toward a chain link fence, flies past the fence. We watch him as he flies. A funeral ship is slow, but he flies fast. This is the last one. Whenever I start writing love poems, or at least when I get one love poem that I think is reasonably okay, that's usually when I know that I have a manuscript mostly done. This finishing of this love poem coincided with the finishing of the manuscript that it's in, the chapbook. And this is called Home After Traveling. We all at once are different people, loved, unchanged, but new to each other. A glare burns on the lake, and in the small boat they take turns rowing, the one, the other. Neither moves except their arms. They pass the oars between them, and neither moves except they lean to row and lean to pass the oars. The one leans now to row, and now to pass the oars, and then the other leans forward, catches them. A glare burns on the lake, beneath which, dark, beneath the light like water spilled on a blue tablecloth, rippling in wind, the glare itself, like water, each leaning in and out of space where the other just was, and steals their absence from the air. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shane. So Shane's broadside was produced by Vanessa Sandoval, who I will introduce. Vanessa is, oh, hang on. I've got all my things on Twitter here. So sorry. This is gonna happen at some point. I'm a little overwhelmed by the poetry tonight. I'm sure some of you can empathize with that, so. Vanessa Sandoval is one of the artists in residence, as are both of the other artists that have read this evening. And Vanessa is a visual artist with a practice in the fields of sculpture, drawing, performance, and installation. She's interested in exploring and questioning the separation between nature and culture, and how bodies are expressions of ecological relations. Sandoval uses condensation and the practice of counting as part of her creative process. Recently, she's been writing essays and doing performances that examine human ways of condensing knowledge in objects and devices, such as encyclopedias, habitat dioramas, and wonder cabinets, in order to point out the ideological relations that structure our relation with the world. So, Vanessa has given me some information to share with you about Shyanne's broadside. This is the broadside in its final manifestation. I have had the pleasure of seeing this thing come into fruition, and what a delight it has been. Vanessa writes, I chose Shyanne's poem because it was full of visual images, and I like the contrast that he plays with in the poem. Particularly, I call attention to the sentence, next April when the insects in the earth pollute the earth with life. I think that idea, thinking that life is something not monochromatic, neat, or organized, as a clean whiteness of snow in winter, to what Shyanne is referring to. So I chose to put insects and bones in the design to follow and contrast against what Shyanne is playing with. And because death is this polished, neat, silent and monochromatic entity in the poem, I chose to do the broadside in black, white, and gray. That hardly captures the fact that these bones shine when you turn the page at different angles. I know that Vanessa struggled and with getting the ink at the opacity. She is a perfectionist, something with which I can empathize, but the finished broadsides are absolutely stunning. And you've seen these, Shyanne, the final image, wonderful. That's what we got here today. All of these broadsides are available on our website. And I wanted to open the floor to any of the poets or artists who wanted to maybe about what this series has been like and how it has come together for them, and you know, this process of collaboration. If anyone has any comments. And if not, I'll open the floor to see if anyone has any comments that they want to throw out into the space before we set you all free half an hour early, just as I like it.
Well, I just want to say it was really I feel like the pairing, I don't know how the pairing worked, but it was really serendipitous. We had so many things in common, or that things that we were thinking about, and it seemed like it was true for Gwen and Shyanne especially as well. So I think that there's, you know, the possibility or occasions for kinship, right? This being an occasion for kinship is really quite beautiful. So thank you.
As far as I understand it, it is our wonderful poet in residence far away from our staff, Liz Castaldo, who facilitates that. And from what I understand, it is the artists who see a selection of poems and they choose the poets. And somehow I totally agree with you that these confluences, these very unexpected coincidences, these larger than that one encounter with a person, that, you know, few poem encounter with a person, those seem to really happen. And they have definitely happened in this series, which couldn't ask for more. So thank you again, Liz, for facilitating that. And thank you, Camilo, for doing that. Are there any other comments people want to throw out in these final moments while we're all still here in this strange space?
Maybe thank you again to you, Allison. And thank you, Camilo and Liz and Center for Book Arts and all the artists and everybody here listening.
Yeah, I'm just so grateful to have been a part of this. And I think I just wish this would happen more, having these spaces for these kind of cross-disciplinary collaborations. And it's just been so fertile and inspiring, and also just being able to share those processes in this space during this reading has been really wonderful.
Well, thank you.
Me too. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a great process. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. All right.
No, Shyanne, please interrupt me.
I'm not articulate anyway, so it's perfectly fine. I said all the words. Everybody said the words for me, and I appreciate that.
Excellent. That's, yeah, I tend to agree. I think the last thing that I will say as we all depart from this thing is that we will be back here next Thursday at 6 p.m. on Zoom. I'm just putting a link in for the second reading in this series, which features Matthew Dix, Shane, or it's not Shane, geez, what am I saying? Matthew Dix, Susan Howe, and Megan Sung Yoon, all of whom are outstanding poets. I think, having seen those artists working on the broadsides, I can say that there are some more strange confluences and magical things happening, including, but not limited to, pressure prints with hair. So there's some really outstanding broadsides coming up from that series also. Thank you again to everyone for being here. Thank you to the poets. Thank you to the artists, especially all of you. This wouldn't be a thing without your confluence here. So I really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you.